viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. This is a show that talks about everything to do with personal injuries in Victoria. My name's Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer of over 25 years experience. With me tonight I've got John Carancis, an accredited common law specialist.
Hi Tony, hi viewers.
And Nuncio Tarteia, a partner in a law firm in insurance law.
Tony, viewers, welcome.
Tony, what's in the news today?
Well, viewers, tonight we've got a lot of stories we want to go through. The first story is to do with the Carl Weems family seeking compensation from the state of Victoria for his death in prison. Now, the interesting thing about this case is that there were stories that his life was at risk. He was cooperating with the police, and the night before he was murdered, his lawyer had rung up the authorities to say that he's at risk. What's your take on this grab for compensation, John?
Tony, it's an audacious bid here. A Supreme Court writ issued in the Supreme Court of Victoria claiming damages on behalf of the father, the daughter and the ex-wife of Carl Williams. It's a novel use of the law, isn't it, Tony?
A little bit. Nuncio, to be able to launch this proceeding, there's some prerequisites, isn't it? You're the insurance lawyer.
That's right. There's a threshold, and they need to show that they've got a psychological condition of greater than 10% whole person impairment. So effectively like a post-traumatic stress disorder or nervous shock claim.
So it's got to be a primary psych condition. Primary
psych condition, and they'll have to be assessed by a psychologist of some sort to see whether they get over that threshold, and that's the first, I suppose, step in pursuing this action. So,
John, assuming we get over the hurdle of liability, let's say the state has done something wrong. They haven't protected him. Do you think they'll get money?
The onus is on the plaintiff, as we all know, to prove on the balance of probabilities that the state of Victoria, and in particular the Department of Justice, has been negligent in the care of Carl Williams here. Now, it's interesting, the report of the Ombudsman, Tony, Mr. Brewer, it helps the plaintiff here, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, it does.
The report was very damning on the procedures of the Department of Justice, wasn't it, Tony?
Well, I mean, he was cooperating with the police, Nuncio, and that was common knowledge. He was also howling in the prison night before, and in prison jargon, that usually means someone's at risk. And there was also concerns expressed by his lawyer.
Look, I would be surprised if this goes all the way to a full-blown hearing, because I think too much is going to come out, to be honest. And I think that report is very much in the plaintiff's favour. So, look, I'd be surprised if there's not some compensation going their way.
This would go before a jury.
Well, it's the plaintiff has asked for judge alone. However, the defendant, I'm sure, will probably ask for a jury. And that's where considerations of public policy will come in, won't it, Tony?
Well, the law might be on the side of the family, but the real concern for me is that a jury won't have to give reasons, and they could just knock them out on the basis of anything.
Exactly.
And then it might be on appeal, you just don't know.
The history of Carl Williams' history will become an issue. It's a relevant factor.
They're not going to get the sympathy of the public, surely.
Exactly, Tony.
The only person who may will be Dakota, the daughter.
But it's interesting, part of the claim is payment of the daughter's school fees. That was part of the apparent deal between the parties, the defendant and the plaintiff. And also payment of the father's ATO debt, tax debt.
Is there dependency? Is that a dependency claim?
Yeah, look, they're going to claim, I think, a few things. General pain and suffering, but also the fact that they were relying on Carl for financial support. Hence why they'll be claiming for school fees, the tax bill, and any other way he was funding them.
But has he lodged tax returns so that he can produce or prove that he's got an income that where these people were dependent?
Well, exactly, and the whole issue is the issue of where Carl Williams was getting his income from, and that is well documented and will come out again in a full-blown trial.
We'll probably come back to this case in the future, viewers. Let's get to another story where judges express concern about reliability of expert witnesses. This has come about where county court judges said that defendants are hiring psychologists and psychiatrists to support their claims to try and get reduced sentences. What's your take on it, Nut?
It's a difficult one because the reality is, in order to prove your case or defend your case, you do need some expert evidence as to the condition and what's occurring, from a defendant point of view. And so it's going to be hard to knock anything out. And how do you prove your case without some sort of expert evidence?
Well, John, there's 3 examples given in this article.
Yes.
Where the psychiatrist/psychologist has been shown to be wrong in believing everything he or she was told by the defendant.
Tony, Judge Joe Galacci said there was a concerning trend of psychologists simply accepting what these offenders say without looking at behind that and looking at the whole truth. And that rings true, doesn't it, Tony?
Well, it does, because there was one example where one of the offenders was claiming post-traumatic amnesia and things like that, and there was CCTV footage of him acting normally. So that contradicted the argument.
Look, I agree with you guys in a sense, but it's difficult because it's not like a physical injury where you've got some radiology to support your argument, whereas psychological conditions are very much subjective and based on how you're feeling and how you present. And how do you go beyond that?
In the end, Tony, this is expert evidence. We don't want guns for hire, just simply giving evidence without looking at the true facts.
Well, this might be just a few small examples of a bigger picture. I mean, we've got 3 examples here, but overall there could be thousands and thousands of matters.
Exactly.
And this is probably the rare, exceptional cases where the defendant's been found to be, I don't know, maybe for want of a better word, fraudulent or colouring the situation.
These were in criminal context, but it also happens in other civil jurisdictions also.
It's very important in civil.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look, let's keep moving. The surgeon, high-profile surgeon, Paddy Dewane, has lost his latest, possibly last legal battle to clear his name over professional misconduct. Nunce, what's your take on this guy?
Oh, look, it was a decision that was found that his conduct was unprofessional in 2 facets. It was regarding a child with a bowel condition, and one, he didn't do the preoperative checks, and post-operatively didn't advise the child's parents appropriately. So an appeal was lodged and unfortunately failed in his regard. So look, I think it upholds good standards. And
John, communication seems to be a massive problem amongst professionals.
We've talked about this before, haven't we, Tony? That medical professionals, lawyers, anyone in that type of professional capacity, we need to explain exactly what is going to happen and what the options are prior to the procedure, prior to the course of conduct contemplated. Now, and we've said it before, haven't we, Tony? When you're a patient, ask questions.
Oh yeah. And also, the doctors and people like that shouldn't be assuming too much.
Exactly.
Look, we're going to go back to Fistville because there's been a lot of stories about Fistville, and in particular, they're talking about setting up a fund to compensate the firefighters that have been severely incapacitated. There's quite a few of them, isn't there, John?
Oh, hundreds, Tony. Hundreds.
And Nuance, why should they be discriminated against? Because people that have had asbestos, mesothelioma and other lung conditions from work can get compensation.
Look, I don't think they should be discriminated against, and I said, look, I hope there is some fund set up where they can get compensation because it's a deadly disease.
Well, viewers, on that note, our topic tonight's about cancer, lung cancer, asbestos, mesothelioma. We're going to go to a short break. When we get back, we'll take up the story of Fistville and the topic of tonight.